Good morning. This is Elizabetta, and I'm so glad that you're here to join us today. Welcome, DECAL staff, and I'm excited for you to learn more about our 2020 plan. We know how busy you all are, and so we appreciate your taking the time out this morning to spend with us. As I mentioned, I'm Elizabetta. I'm Elizabetta Casper. I'm the Deputy Commissioner for Federal Programs, and I oversee the CAPS program. Presenting with me today are Bentley Ponder, the Deputy Commissioner for Quality Innovations and Partnerships, which includes Quality Rated, and Denise Jensen, the Director of Quality Rated. Also with us in the room are a whole bunch of other DECAL staff and your executive leadership, and we are very excited to be together with you this morning. So today, we're going to share updates about CAPS and Quality Rated, and how we're going to support child care providers in becoming rated in 2020, whether they're a CAPS participant or they're not. We have a lot of folks on the webinar today, so everybody is muted, but you can type your questions into the chat box at any time, and we'll try to get to as many questions as we're able to at the end of the webinar. Any questions that we don't have time for, we will put out an FAQ or we will answer via email. And then our webinar is being recorded today and will be circulated if you need to listen to it again or for people who weren't able to attend with us. So on to our actual 2020 content. So this is a department-wide initiative that all eligible child care providers serving families in the CAPS program will be quality rated by the end of 2020 or 12/31/2020. This initiative is aligned with DECAL's vision that every child in Georgia will have access to high-quality early care and education regardless of family income or location. This may seem like it's a quality rated or a CAPS thing, but all divisions really play a role in order to reach this milestone. For example, our child care services consultants out there and our pre-K consultants out there routinely visit programs and have built relationships with them. We're going to need you to talk with unrated programs about why it's important to become quality rated and the benefits and supports that are available. This is truly a department-wide initiative that will really make a difference for Georgia's children and families. So again, please remember to type in your questions in the chat box as you have them, and so you don't forget them. So you do them as they come up. So we have, are going to go over today our communication plan. That will be first, and then Bentley is going to talk a bit about our 2020 support, and Denise about our operational changes and policy changes, and then I'm going to come back and talk a bit about our CAPS milestones, and then we're going to answer your questions. So with our communication plan, sorry. Okay, we had a slide difficulty there. Sorry about that. So we have a fairly comprehensive communication plan that includes informational letters and webinars, stakeholder meetings, a public comment opportunity, messaging in our CAPS billing portal and the quality rated portal, targeted messaging and communication to families, DECAL social media, and DECAL staff, as I mentioned, across divisions will play a role in these communications. So some key dates for our communications over the next couple of months. You may recall about 10 days ago on October 21st, we sent out our first introductory letter to all child care providers from Bentley and I, just letting them know that we were going to be rolling out this plan and inviting them to this webinar. Of course, today we're having that first webinar with you right now and then with child care providers shortly after. And there'll be a second letter that we believe should go out later today or on Monday that summarizes all of the key information that we're going over today. And then you guys might be interested to know that we're having stakeholder engagement meetings that will happen on November 13th and 14th with a larger group of advocates and providers and other agency staff so that we can get really good feedback from a cross-section of our population about some of the information that we're sharing. And then on the second day, we'll be meeting with the DECAL advisory group to get recommendations on, again, some of the information we're sharing. Then we will roll out our full plan at our DECAL board meeting on November 21st. And then in late November or early December, we're going to have another webinar like this one and a third letter to providers that basically gives us all the details of the content that we haven't yet covered by that point. And then in December, we're going to have regional community meetings that are led by our early education community partnership coordinators in each of the 6 regions. Okay, the screenshot that you see up on your slide right now is a page that will come up in the CAHPS billing portal for all providers who are not yet star rated, so that they can advise us of their plans to get quality rated or whether they will elect to opt out. Providers planning to get quality rated will be able to advise us about where they are in the process as well as they follow the prompts based on which option that they select on the screen. Okay, I'm now going to turn it over to Bentley to start talking about why are we doing this.
Sure, thanks, Elizabeth. And it's really neat that we're able to start sharing this stuff. I know that we've had a lot of people that have been working really hard the last couple months to come up with all these policy changes, and we have a lot of work to do, but I feel like we are definitely on the right track, and this is just great. So again, thanks to everybody who's taken their time to listen today. I'm going to kind of kick us off by talking about where we've been and where we are, and then I'm going to turn it over to Denise, who's going to go into more of where we're going and some of what these next steps are. So just to get everybody on the same page, what you have in front of you here is the slide that talks about what exactly the 2020 goal is, that all CAHPS providers must be star rated, which is either 1, 2, or 3 stars by December 31st, 2020 to continue to receive CAHPS funding. Just as a reminder, this was a recommendation from an early education subcommittee that was part of an educational reform commission, and this recommendation came out in 2016. So we've been working on this for quite some time. To think about why is the department doing this, and as Elizabeth said, this is a departmental focus. The slide here is a training piece that our quality rated and CAHPS teams have been doing with different staff persons, and so anyway, those are the sorry, someone's taking pictures and it got me completely thrown off. Anyway, happy Friday. So there you see there some of the different reasons that, the research supported pieces of why this is so important. So first of all, we want to have more high quality programs serving our most vulnerable children. We also want families to have access, and that access, as Elizabeth talked about with our vision statement, should be regardless of income or geographic location. And so, we want families across the state to be able to have those options. We also want to eliminate the myth that the programs that are serving low-income families do not provide high-quality care, and that high-quality care is an option and a right for all families. And then we think this is a really responsible way for using our CCDF dollars, and CCDF is the funding source for our CAHPS program, and we want to make that investment for our best environment and experiences for young children. So where are we now? So I'm going to talk about where we are with quality rated, and then I'm going to talk about where we are with CAHPS. So as of October 30th, so I think this is pretty much hot off the press, right now there are about 4,661 eligible programs. 1,960 of them are star rated. So that's about 41%. Now, if you look at the slide there, 33% are somewhere in the process, which means they're participating. So that's a good number there if you take, across the board. And then we have 26% not participating. If you break it down by the different star ratings, 22% of those that are rated are 3 stars, 51% are 2 stars, and 28% are 1 stars. And that's a really nice distribution for a tiered quality rating and an improvement system. And if you haven't had a chance to look at it, our validation study really supports the way that we break out our different star levels. Now, that being said, though, for those that are in the 33% and 26% of all eligible providers, we still do not know exactly what that quality looks like. So one of the great parts about this goal is to move that needle up and to be able to see the quality of many more of our programs. So to look at where we are with our CAPS goal here, so this is at the child level. And so if you look now, and I love the trend of this line, I love the fact that the line is actually getting steeper and the trend is increasing. So about 66% of our children with CAPS scholarships now are in a quality rated program. And that just is a testament to the hard work that everyone's been doing. And just look at how much that needle has moved since March of 2018. If we take in and add in the bucket of children and providers who are participating in quality rated, that actually gets us up to 96%. So really, if you think about it, just getting those providers that are in their participating bucket really gets us very close to our 2020 goal. So that's at the child level. If we take the same data and look at it at the provider level, we see that 54% of our providers are quality rated. If we compare the child level data with the provider level data, what we'll see is that our providers that are serving more children with scholarships are more likely to be rated. So that's a trend that we expect, and it's a trend that then helps us, become closer to our goal. And at the provider level too, so we're at 89% of providers participating. So again, just by closing that gap between rated and participating gets us closer to our goal. Before I turn it over to Denise, let me just explain for a few minutes where we are now. So one of the things that we're working hard on are figuring out what are some financial resources and supports that we can offer providers in 2020 to encourage and get closer to meeting our goal. Basically, right at this moment, we are committed to some type of 2020 incentive package. Right now, we're determining what the amount that is, what the funding source, and how that will be administered. We will know that within the next couple of weeks, but there's just a lot of decisions to be made. And I would say, too, that the decisions to be made are not just about the amount and funding source, but actually who is eligible for those incentives. So again, we've got a lot of hard decisions to be made. We also want to make sure that we have opportunities for stakeholder engagement around this specific support bucket. And so we'll be doing that on the 13th and 14th. What we do know now is we're looking at two different types of financial supports. So one would be a 2020 incentive package. What we know about that is it'll be available to CAPS providers who are receiving their first star rating. So it's for those in that initial rating bucket. They will have to be observed in 2020 and then registered as accepting CAPS scholarships. So they have to be a CAPS provider. We're really happy to talk about that. This will include workforce bonuses, so something to help support our teachers and directors. And I know that last bullet may not make sense now. It will in about 5 minutes, but those incentives will vary based on the cohort group selected. So Denise is going to talk about our cohort model, and the incentives will factor in based on that cohort model. We're also looking at a signing bonus, and again, this is also related to that cohort. So for those that register for a cohort before January 31st, will be eligible for a signing bonus. We look at this to be at the program level, and then it'll be higher for programs that sign up between that December 1st and December 31st date. And I know you're all probably wondering, well, what is this cohort model? So I'm gonna get there and pass it over to Denise, who's going to talk about that.
Thanks, Bentley. So in addition to the cohort model, there's a couple of other changes that we are going to be making that will just be temporary policy changes for 2020, and I will get to those after I've explained the cohort group slot system. Now, this cohort group slot system is something that will be a permanent change for quality rated, and it's a change that we've always known we would have to move to eventually once quality rated went to scale. And it's a way simply for us to just be able to manage the flow of the process as providers go through the system of becoming rated. And so it not only helps our quality rated staff be able to manage the workload, it will also help the technical assistants, R&R staff to be able to prioritize programs as they're working with them throughout the year. And it will also help providers to be able to strategically plan but when is the best time for them to receive that classroom observation? So they'll be able to think about the big picture of their program as they're making improvements to their programs, and to be able to plan strategically throughout the year for what makes the most sense to them. So in terms of the permanent operational change to our new cohort group slot system, a couple of things have to happen first. In order for us to be able to move to an entirely new system and a new way for providers to sign up for their portfolio submission and ERS observation, we are having to halt the current system. So that means for all initial and reapplication portfolios, that's all the folks that do not yet have a star rating, they will not be able to submit a portfolio after November the 8th. So we have to stop the current system, give us time to transition to the new system that will be up and running December 1st. So the new system will be available December 1st for providers to go in and to start selecting their cohort group. So initial ratings will register for one of 4 cohort groups next year, and those cohort groups are roughly based on the quarters for each year, and so there'll be 4 choices for them to select from. Within each cohort group, there will be a set number of available program slots. So providers are not signing up for an observation date. What they are doing is signing their program up to be a member of a cohort group, and within that cohort group, there will be a set date when they will need to submit their portfolio. There will be a set date range for when their observation will occur, and then there will be a set date range for when they can expect to receive their rating. As I've mentioned, each one of those cohort groups has a certain number of slots available, and as providers sign up for those slots, they will be reduced with however many are in that particular slot. So providers will be able to see in real time how many of slots are available for each cohort group. One of the things that we are doing next year in order to make sure that we have capacity to meet the requirements of our CAPS 2020 deadline is to give CAPS providers the priority to register for a cohort group first. So December the 1st, for all of our CAPS providers, they will have the ability to come in first and sign up and select the cohort group of their choice. And then starting January 1st, any other providers, non-CAPS providers, will be able to come in and then also select their slot from the available slots within each cohort group. So all that to say, sounds a little bit confusing when you say the words, so we wanted to explain and walk you through what this will mean for a provider, how they are actually going to access the grid for them to select their slots. So starting December 1, all of our providers will see a screenshot when they log into their portfolio. This particular screenshot that you see here is the screenshot that our CAPS providers will see, and it's basically going to prompt them to select their cohort group for 2020. And this screen will appear before they can actually go on and access their portfolio and continue working in their portfolio and documenting their evidence. So we're really forcing them to make a choice. And the reason that we need our CAPS providers to choose by the end of January is to ensure that we can guarantee that that observation can then take place before the end of next year so that they can receive their rating. So they will have the choice to either select yes or no. If they select yes, they're going to see the next screen that I show you. If they select no, then they can go into their portfolio and continue working. But the next time they log in, this screen is going to continue to pop up to remind them, hey, you need to select your cohort group. We need to get you scheduled again to guarantee that you can keep your CAPS funding. So if they select yes, this is what the cohort group selection will look like. So providers will have the choice to select from 4 cohort groups next year. And again, those cohort groups are roughly modeled around the quarters. It's a little bit different for next year because our first observation window is not an entire quarter. As you can see there, the observation window for cohort group 1 does not actually start until February. In subsequent years, the first cohort group will be January, February, and March. But for this year only, it's just going to be February and March. So basically what a provider will need to do when they see this grid will determine when they would like to have their observation. So they're going to be looking at that window that says 2020 observation window, and they're going to determine which quarter is going to be more advantageous, or when they feel that they're ready to have us come out and conduct those classroom observations. Then they're going to work back. There will be dates in the portfolio submission window, and the program slots available will have a number in there. Those are a couple of things that we're still determining what the submission window will be, and the number of slots per quarter based on our capacity and the anticipated need for each quarter. So basically then the provider will just select, they'll be able to check which box they want to select for their cohort group to be a member of, and then there'll be some additional words that they'll agree to their understanding that they've selected this cohort group, that cohort groups are not going to be able to be changed, and then it will explain to them what their next steps will be. For the cohort group number 1, you can see there's some notes there that do not appear in the other cohort groups. This is because this group is going to be our first cohort group, and for folks who sign up for this, they may not have had time to complete and submit their portfolio by the portfolio submission window. So we know that there are going to be providers who are eager to get that observation early in the year, may not have had that opportunity yet to finish all the work, so we will have to do the process in reverse, excuse me, meaning that we will conduct the ERS observation first, and then they will have until the end of that quarter to submit that portfolio. That's simply a way to be provider friendly, to give them enough time to do the work in their portfolio and get that submitted. Every other cohort will submit their portfolio first by the deadline date of the submission window, and then they will continue through the process as the process currently operates. So that's the cohort slot method, and as I mentioned, this is a permanent change. So we will be moving to this method for every year, subsequent year that we operate quality rated, we'll be operating on the cohort method. What I wanted to share with you next is a couple of changes that we are going to be putting in place just for next year. And we're doing this to allow us to have enough capacity to observe all of those programs that we know that we're going to be adding with our capacity. So the first of our temporary program policy changes is going to be an automatic extension for all of those programs that are coming up on expiring next year. So as you may know, Quality Rated is a system that awards star ratings to programs, either a 1, 2, or a 3-star, and that rating is valid for a 3-year period. Once you reach that 3rd year, you actually have an expiration date, and if you do not renew your rating, go through the process again, you actually will expire. So for next year, we have about 500 programs that are coming up on expiring, and in order to make sure that we have the capacity to meet all of the initial applications, we have made the determination that we will be given an automatic extension for those providers expiring next year. So this is really a hold harmless year. The providers will not have to do anything. They will automatically be updated. So with this, though, we know that there may be some providers who really were looking forward to going through the re-rating process. They might be looking at ways to maybe increase their star rating level and increase that tier. So there is going to be an option for those programs to be able to opt out of this extension. And in order to do that, they will have to still submit then their portfolio in the normal manner that they would currently, and they will not be extended for the year. However, in order to let us know that they want to opt out, because all of these 2020 dates will be automatically extended to 2021, we are going to ask providers to let us know that they would like to take this opt-out. And so we will be sending an email to all of the providers that are in this category. That email will be sent on Monday, and providers will then be notified of the options and how they can opt out and how they notify us if they choose to opt out. So we hope that providers will have at least a month to make the best decision that they feel meets the needs of their program, and then can choose to opt out if they wish to do that. So we'd like to just kind of walk you through what that might potentially look like for a provider. So what you can see here is example number 1. And so provider A has an expiration date of June 15th, and they've decided that they don't want to have their rating extended, and they actually want to go through and try for that next higher tier. So what they will be asked to do is to carefully read the email that they will receive on Monday, which will explain the system, the extension to them. And then before November 30th, they will need to click on the link within the email that notifies us that they want to opt out of the re-rating extension. What will then happen is when the program is within 120 days of their expiration date, their portfolio will become available to them as it currently does. They'll begin working on all of those required reassessment pieces, and they will need to submit that portfolio before their expiration date. If they do not submit their portfolio before the expiration date, just like now, their rating will actually expire. So it's going to be very important if the providers do opt out of this, that they understand what the consequences will be if they fail to submit that portfolio by the expiration date. So let's take a look at example 2. This is provider B, who also has a June 15th, 2020 expiration date, and they decide that they would like to take the extension. And so for those providers, they actually do not have to take any action. They are not required to email us. They're not required to notify us. This extension will automatically happen in their account. In December, when they see their expiration date in their quality rated account, say 2020, it will automatically be updated to 2021. There's nothing that they need to do to let us know. There's nothing they need to do to let CAPS know. Everything will just continue on for another year for them, and then we'll see them in 2021 for their required reassessment. So that's what's going to happen with the required reassessment. The second group that we knew that we had to address were all of those programs that were rated in 2018 and 2019. They're not getting ready to expire next year, but they do currently have the option to request a reassessment and try to increase their star rating. So we know that in that bucket, there's roughly around 1,100 programs. So of course, we know that we can't have the potential for 1,100 programs to ask for an observation. And so for next year only, we will be suspending the ability for these programs to request a reassessment. And so that also will be something that will automatically occur within the quality rated account. Again, we know that there may be programs that really want to try and increase their star rating. They're looking for that higher tier. And we want to be provider friendly and give these programs also the opportunity to opt out of this suspension and let us know that they would really want to go through with the request for reassessment next year. So again, this group will be receiving an email on Monday explaining the details of this suspension and what that will mean to them, and given the option for them to opt out with the link for them to click on that will then take them to the notification for them to opt out of this particular suspension. So let's take a look at what this will look like for this group of providers. So again, we have provider A, who has what is called an annual verification date. Again, they're not expiring. This is their anniversary. It's the birthday of their rating. But they have an annual verification period, and they've decided that they would like to try again for that higher star rating and be re-rated. So again, they will want to carefully read the email that they'll receive on Monday explaining how this suspension will work. And then if they do make that decision to opt out, they will need to let us know by November 30th that they want to opt out and they want to have their request for reassessment option available to them. So just like expiring group, this group will have access to their portfolio 120 days before their anniversary date. This will allow them to begin working on their request for reassessment portfolio. They'll need to make sure that they submit that portfolio prior to their anniversary date. If they fail to submit that portfolio, just like it is today, they will then actually become what we call an automatic check-in. and then they will not be able to have access to their portfolio again until the next year. So again, it's crucial to understand if they opt out, they still have to submit that portfolio to complete the process. And then we have example 2, which again is provider B, who has that same annual verification date of June 15th. And they've decided, you know what, we're happy with our rating. We don't intend to request a reassessment. So what do we need to do? So for this group, again, they're going to still get the email. They're going to take no action. They don't need to notify us. But during their annual verification next year, they will see the options in their quality rated account will only be check-in or continuous quality improvement award that they currently see now, which is based on funding availability. So that piece will not change. They still have to check which option they want, but they just will not see the option for a request for reassessment. So that concludes our policy changes and our system changes. And so I'm going to hand this back over to Elizabetta, and she's going to be able to share some of the key milestones that are currently under consideration.
Thank you, Denise. So there's going to be key milestones that are related to the deadline. The purpose of these is to continue supporting providers and becoming rated while also minimizing the potential impact on families. So the first milestone that I want to talk about is that providers who are not yet quality rated and have not yet signed up for one of the cohort slots that Denise just talked about to be observed would no longer be able to accept any new CAPS families. This would include new families coming into CAPS, as well as families who are already in the CAPS program who would not be able to select these programs if they wanted to change to a new child care provider. This milestone, please note, is not requiring that the program have a rating. It is requiring just that the provider has signed up for a slot and committed to becoming rated by the end of 2020. The date that we're proposing to implement this milestone is May 1st of 2020. And I know that my staff are on this webinar wondering how in the world are we operationalizing this? And maybe other staff are wondering too, but I can assure you that we're working diligently. My staff, I know there's other staff on the webinar as well. My staff use a program called Georgia Gateway. And for my staff, it's definitely not going to be in Georgia Gateway. Because this is just that they've signed up for a slot. It's not whether they're quality rated or not. Whether they're quality rated or not will probably be going into Georgia Gateway, but not whether they've signed up for a slot. We know that you need a really easy way to know this information, and we will make sure that it is readily available to you so as not to put any kind of kinks in your processes as you will be processing the work. And the other thing that we're thinking about, we haven't made a determination yet of exactly where this information will be, but we're thinking about POLAR. And part of the reason, I know many of you are familiar with POLAR and use it, is not only is that easily accessible to any employee at DECAL, but it's not just the CAP staff who need to know. Our pre-K staff need to know. Our child care services staff need to know, because they can look to see, has the program that they just are, that they're scheduled to visit this week or next week signed up yet? And if they haven't, then we're going to be providing some key messaging that they can share with the program, because as I mentioned in the beginning, they've often built that relationship. So the second milestone that I want to talk about today is that providers who have not yet been observed for their star rating would no longer be able to participate in CAPS. After this point, we would start moving families to a quality rated provider as they came up for their renewal. Or if they elected to remain at the non-rated provider, scholarships would be end dated and CAPS would no longer be able to pay for care. The proposed date for this milestone is January 1st of 2021. We wanted to make sure that we were not moving the goalpost on child care programs who we've told that they have until the end of 2020 to become quality rated. And so that is why we are proposing that this not start till January 1st, 2021. And I want to also just please note, a provider who has been observed for their rating but just doesn't have the actual rating yet would not fall into this group. Only those who have not been observed and don't have their rating would this apply to. So those are the two major milestones that we're trying to determine and that we will definitely be doing some stakeholder engagement on to be able to decide if these are the appropriate dates or if we need to look at different dates. So I want to just draw attention to these quotes that you see on your screen. They are from actual parents at quality rated facilities, and it's a really nice demonstration of how quality rated positively impacts families as well as providers. And given the changes that you've heard today, we realize that it's a lot and that there's going to be a lot of impact, especially on providers and on families, to do with these changes. But with what we've proposed, we believe that we're enabling providers to be successful, and that's really important in the work that we do at DECAL. But our primary focus with this 2020 deadline is making sure that every child has access to quality rated care, and that we are, as I mentioned in the very beginning of the webinar, aligning with DECAL's vision to ensure access despite family location or income. So with that concludes our presentation, and we would be more than happy to spend a few minutes answering your questions. If you haven't already typed in your questions in the chat box, please, I think it should be on the right side of your screen, please go ahead and do that, and we're going to try to answer as many as we can.
Sure, and Elizabeth, I'll kick off here. So I'm going to volley this to you.
Okay.
So one of the questions is, will informal and exempt providers participate in meeting this goal?
The answer to that would be no, and the reason is that currently informal and exempt providers are not eligible to become quality rated. So if that were to change in the future, then we would, at that point, figure out how we were going to roll that system out. But I also should mention that our exempt and informal population is very small. The vast majority of the children in CAPS are in licensed care.
Okay, that's great. And so this next one here, it's a little bit of a crystal ball question, so I'll again phrase it back to you. And I think to start it out, just to remind people that there's an enormous benefit for being quality rated in terms of the tiered bonuses. So, 10% more on the base rate per week per child for 1 star. That goes to 20% for 2 stars and 40% for 3 stars. So the question is, will the increase of having more quality rated programs impact provider rates?
Well, I want to give a plug to our folks that are in our finance and administration section of DECAL, who are really smart, and they've figured out ways to project how to support even with all providers becoming quality rated. In addition, I think that we all would love to be able to look at ways to increase our rates over the coming years, and certainly are hopeful that we will get more federal money in order to help do that. And I think we are also looking at our rate structure as a whole. And so you may see in a couple of years a slightly different rate structure. Once everybody is quality rated, then we will pay providers in a different way, because instead of it being a bonus, it might become a new rate structure. But more to come on that in the future.
That's a great question. Denise, this next one here is for you. So really simply, what happens if a program doesn't get a slot?
That's a really good question. So the way we have designed the slot system, especially for and I'm assuming this is maybe the CAPS providers, because we had that deadline of January 31st in which the CAPS providers have to sign up for their slot. So what we're doing is we really want CAPS providers to have priority on signing up and self-selecting the slot that they're in. We want them to drive the train. We want them to make the best decision for their program as to when they would like our assessors to come out and be evaluating their programs. And so for providers who have not signed up for a slot by the end of January, DECAL staff will be reaching out and contacting those providers to find out their intent to remain CAPS participant. And at that time, our QR staff will have the ability to manually add them to a slot. However, the caveat with that is the slot that they will be assigned to may not be the slot of their choice, because we will only be able to put them in a cohort group that still has an available slot at that time. So again, that's why we really want to encourage providers to sign up early, to sign up quickly. We think some of those cohort groups may fill up faster than other ones, and so we don't want providers to be disappointed and not be able to get the slot of their choice.
Okay, so really first come, first served?
First come, first served, early bird gets the worm.
Okay. All right, so I'm seeing if we have any more questions.
Okay, well, I think if that concludes the questions that you guys have, then we will give you back 20 minutes into your day, and we thank you again for taking the time out to spend 40 minutes with us learning about this very important work to work towards the 2020 deadline. And if you have further questions after the webinar, please feel free to reach out to your director, your manager, or your deputy commissioner, and we will be glad to answer those. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Happy Friday.